Hello lovely friends, I'm Jibid. I'm here to show you a custom order today on an ocean themed journal. Before I start, if you're watching in timeline, I have some good news about the sending of specimens in, like this one, dried pressed flowers in journals. So far we have good news about Europe and also about the States and Canada. So I think that because that is my biggest, area of sending stuff to, that's great news for me. So I am very thrilled about that. The lady that ordered the last journal that I had to omit samples. If you're watching, I will be sending you some extra tags and pockets to stick in your book. So that's very good news. We're still working on a few other countries, just waiting for replies to emails and searching for relevant articles, etc. So that's that. So we're happy. So let's look at the ocean theme book. So this lady, when she said ocean theme, I was a little bit not sure, because ocean is not really I'm not drawn to the ocean, but because it is still a part of nature, I wanted to give it a go. She told me some of the colours that she wanted. Sea foam was the main one, like a very, well, you know what sea foam is. And she didn't want too much brown, so it was about blues and pale greys. So what was in my head when I was thinking ocean theme book was like an old captain's log type, those big chunky journals. But she didn't want brown, so although I have added some tea dyes and stuff to the inside, I didn't want it to be too brown, so I didn't want to do leather, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I'm just going to zoom out a tiny bit. So I went for the kind of very seafoam, very pale blue cover, but I wanted to give the impression that this book had been dragged up out of the ocean, like tangled in a net, or just washed up and found in an old beach cave. So I've tried to do some kind of water damaged effects. I hope that this colour shows. It's a very, very pretty pale, very pale blue, a kind of bluey green colour. So I've done a little bit of stitching on the bottom. I've just got to get to the door, excuse me. Pause and back. Yes, so as I was saying, I wanted that impression that it had been like caught in a fishing net or something like that, and just got tangled up. So many, many tangly edges here, and strings and fibres, and I'm really hoping that you don't have OCD or something like that, because I think this book is going to drive you mad if you do. I've just kind of left them tangly. And I don't know, you might end up throwing this book back into the sea, I think, if you do have something like OCD. But feel free to remove things and cut things off. So I've put lots and lots of tags. I hope you can see these. Lots of beautiful jewels and pearls, and look at that seashell, isn't that pretty? With the gold. And lovely big black pearl, more beach glass, and little turtle, and some pearls. And somewhere I've got a little actual beach glass. This is real beach glass from our local beach. There we are. You can see what I mean about lots and lots of fibres So hope you can see that. I've just wrapped some silver wire around that and hooked it onto a paper clip. So lots of beautiful things, and the cover, this is the title of the cover portrait, Undine Beneath the Crystal Vault, and I've put some ridges here, and I wanted to do a curved spine because I was thinking those kind of captains sold chunky books. And all along the edge you've got these tangled fishing nets, all in lovely blues and greens. Let's see if I can show you that. So I think the cover it came out very nice, and for the samples I don't have any actual seaweed samples, but I was going through my collection and found some plants that I thought would maybe pass for seaweed, so I've detached these leaves from a fern and just kind of arranged them so that they're growing in different shapes, more like seaweed shapes. And there's a little jewel tangled up in the nets here, and this is Undine. This is Arthur Rackham, which was also specially requested. So beautiful water damaged Tim Holtz papers. This is the memorandum set. I think that that's the only one that I've used in this. These fibres are they remind me of tentacles. They're very twisty. This is spun silk, and in the spinning world we say that these have energy because they have movement in the twist. So I really like the way that they're behaving. This was a nice idea. I've made these envelopes with inked tracing paper. I think that this one is glued. Yeah. I think further on I've left one so that it's open so that you can see how it's done. But just sewed it with some plain paper and some Shakespeare book pages. She likes Shakespeare too, so that was one of the requests, literature, Shakespeare poetry. So I've tried to include a few things like that too. There's a long pocket here with a tag with machine lines, more tentacles. Oh, that's my note for later. Take that out for the credits. So some tracing paper, been through the typewriter, and that's an extract from The Owl and the Pussycat. Had to include The Owl and the Pussycat, it's one of my favourite poems. This is a vintage postage stamp, a British stamp that has the two little characters there in their pea green boat. There's some collaging and stitching, lots and lots and lots of stitching. And this is a flip here, that's your personal info card with space for phone numbers. And for the library I've chosen, of course, The Tempest. And a quote here by Lord Byron about nature and the sea. The other thing to mention was that I don't think that this lady is a very girly girl, not a frilly pretty type of person. So she said that it was an ocean theme, but she wanted a bit more bleak and desolate, and that kind of, I think, slightly darker side excuse me, of the ocean. So that was actually quite a challenge for me, but I really like how this book has turned out. And there's two main reasons why I'm surprised how happy I am with this book. Was one, that the inking went really well, had some really good effects with the inked papers and tracing paper. And the second reason was thanks to Miss Tracy Fox again. Hi Tracy. I'm beginning to think this girl is a genius. So if you've watched my videos before, you know that I love tracing paper and using it in different ways, and I like printing on it. Now, excuse me, why it has never occurred to me to print a colour picture on tracing paper, I have no idea. But I was watching one of Tracy's recent videos and they looked so beautiful I had to try it straight away. And I was working on this ocean theme book at the time, so there's a few like that, which we'll come to later. So this one is just inked, and I really like how the colours have come out on these. And of course you get the crinkly effect also. I've inked, and then as they have air dried, I went over with an iron just to flatten them out, and they've come out really beautiful. There's a seashell stamp here on some hand-dyed fabric, and I've left it very messy, the ends and such. Here we've got a little embroidery applique. So I've used a lot of this cheesecloth. Now when I went to my local market to buy cheesecloth, it was too nice. It was like a clothing quality one. So just to let you know that you can get different types. This one I bought online, and I think it was more like a household cloth type thing, but it is still cheesecloth. But you can see that the weave is really open and messy, and you get lots and lots of ends with this. So it was perfect really for this, although you wouldn't want to make clothes with it. And again, some dyed cloth here. And on the back, rather than covering over the stitching, it looks, you know, it's fine as it is, so I've left that open as well. So I've done the waves, just straight stitches on the sewing machine in different colours, and I really love how these effects have come out with the inks. They remind me actually of the kind of organic patterns on the sand, on the wet sand that you can get, and you can see some plant transfers there as well. So I think they look really cool. And that's the other side of the sea from that boat embroidery. I just thought it'd be really cool to journal on that page. The sea is very inspiring. I do recognise that, even though that's not my thing. We live near the ocean here. We're very blessed to live between the ocean and the countryside. So every time I'm at the beach, I'm kind of thinking I wish I'd gone the other way towards the forest and spend time there. But the ocean in its own way is very inspiring, and I do recognise why people are drawn to it. This is really cool, where I've inked this tracing paper, because as we know, tracing paper wrinkles really, really easily when it gets wet. So when I've wet it, and then as it starts wrinkling, you put the inks on, and then the inks actually pool in the wrinkles, and so you get these beautiful wave effects that actually looks like you've painted water here, but you know, it just does it by itself. It's really quite clever. And some splashes here, and then I like the way you can see these pictures behind. So this is a vintage illustration, a mermaid painting. Here is that's another mermaid on a journaling card who she's got tangled up. There we are. Let me put this down. Oh, the door again. Excuse me. And back. Okay, so I'll just show you this little tag. I've wrapped some jewellery wire with some beads and a bit of collaging, some inked tracing papers, little seahorse charm. There's another pocket. I love this page. This is, I've hand dyed some cloth here and I really love how these colours go together so perfectly. This is Undine again, so this is a full size picture of the front cover, and as you can see this is printed on tracing paper. Gives a really beautiful effect, and I love especially with the watery theme of this book how you get this lovely translucent effect. And I'll just show you the eco dye closely because you can just make out the shapes of the tiny kind of seaweed plants and the veins. It looks really cool. So that's that. Some machine lines here. I have dyed some organdy for a lovely transparent pocket. There's some tracing paper with a stamp, and I've done quite a few signatures in this book, more than usual. I think I've done 9, because there was quite a few of these paintings that I didn't want to cut in half, so I wanted to do the centre spread. This is an artist called Wigwellin, and I think I've used a couple of his, really beautiful. So more of this inked tracing paper, and I've put some more seaweed here with fern leaves, and a vintage postcard. Here is Undine again with some stamped lines and some kind of wavy stitching along the bottoms. Some leaf transfers. So Tracy's wonderful idea. Thank you so much, Tracy, for showing us this. I've done some of the left the foreground image as it is, and then sometimes in the background, if you increase the brightness or less contrast on your images, you'll get a fainter for the background images, so that your main one is going to stand out here. Some more stamped fabric, hand-dyed fabric, and this wonderful octopus. It's a Walt Whitman quote. And I've made some of these little pockets with vintage book pages. This one is 20,000 Leagues, and just done some stamps and collaging and some inked tags with a fussy cut. And on the back I've done some little scraps and a bit more writing space. This lovely octopus from the Graphics Fairy. I've done that as a flip with a magnet for more space. So here's another of these vintage illustrations. A mermaid and a fawn. This is your bookmaker letter, from the bookmaker, sorry. And these are from Tsunami Rose. And some more inked tracing paper with collages, a dictionary definition. So here's another of these envelopes. This always confuses me that they are attached on the other side. Oh, this one is glued as well. I'm looking for one that's open to show you properly. I'm thinking of doing some of these for the shop in sets, because I think this is really cool that you can see half see inside the envelope. So I'm thinking about doing a set of those. There's another tag with that same stamp on it, and I've sewed this onto paper. Shakespeare poem, some corals, a pocket with another mermaid image on here. This lovely poem, He Wishes for the Cloths of Heaven, by William Butler Yeats. And on here some more writing space and a tag, some silver seashells here and some collaging. And this is the index from a shell book, a book of shells. I've used more tracing paper here for a little book for extra papers, and I've used these atlas pages for some double pockets here. I chose these because they had a lot of sea on them because of this lovely sea foam colour. So there's a pocket here and another tag. This is on tracing paper. I was trying to go for I didn't want to go too nautical with when she said ocean. I was thinking it would be really easy to make it look like a little boy's bedroom with you know, sailboats and lighthouses and things like that, and lifesavers, which I didn't really want. I wanted it to be more about the nature of the ocean, so I've kind of steered away from that. Although I have just put, I think I've put 2 little boats and 1 lighthouse, but I wanted it to be more about the nature side. Oh, so that's your lighthouse picture. So I used this because I thought this is a really cool journaling space on that sky area. And on the backs I've put all the book pages are about plants that grow near the sea. Pocket here with some collaged cards and some more stitches. I've done 3 of these folios with the machine line. Oh, sorry, I'm not in frame. Done 3 of these with the machine lines, and so that there's 6 pages sticking out of the side of the book with all these extra fibres. I thought that would look cool. Oh yeah, so I think this might be the one that I left open to show you. Normally when I make envelopes I do always leave them open so that you can write on the tea-stained paper on the back, but I thought, well, you're not really going to manage to write on there. So I've glued the others, but this one I just wanted to show you. So I'm holding it diagonally here. That would be the left-hand top corner of your paper. So if you are stitching the papers together, you want to go just slightly diagonal, almost vertical, and then when you fold it, you're going to get that lovely sweep across the diagonal front of your envelope. There's that lovely seashell. I've attached some of the charms to the tabs on the book, and some of them are on the paper clips that you can move about. I don't know why I keep trying to pick up this book. It's a very touchy-feely book, I think. Rather than just leaving it, it does sit very well. I've done a curved spine, as I said, but you know, as you can see, the pages do open well by themselves. A quote here on more tracing paper, and that's more tracing paper inked onto a pocket. Some wavy lines, another vintage postcard. And then that's more sky to write on and some shorebirds on here. This is vintage exercise book, and I've used this lovely peaceful sea painting from Klimt that I've used before, and I did a Shakespeare quote. On this vintage book there's some folklore about pelicans, and this is a Monet, which is kind of not his usual thing that we're used to seeing, but I liked it because it had that more desolate, bleak feel to it, which I thought would appeal to her. And sea holly on the back with a little extract from Shakespeare, which I thought was quite cool. And another pocket. Some collaging again with some nets and tracing paper waves and stamping on fabric. So that's a pocket here, and on the back some writing space. More tracing paper. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oops. Okay. Nice big tag with a fussy cut. Oh no, it's not, that's tracing paper, sorry. And some space on the back. All the tags are double layer so that they're stronger for you. Another pocket here. That's that same stamp stamped on some sewing paper, and some more nets and collaging. This ledger that I use quite often, it's very old, and normally I trim these parts off, but this is where it's glued into the fabric in the middle of the book, and it's left all this old glue, which looks really cool with these frayed ends. It looks very washed up on a beach, you know. I think I will get cut off soon because my phone is limited on storage, but you'll find the rest on part 2, I'm sure. This is tracing paper, so it has a flip, so you could write on here and on the back as well, and that's who the quote is from, and some stamped lines. Where was the pocket? That's another tracing paper one. I love these colours. This particular green, I think that was Distress Pine Forest or something like that.